the database that has been anonymized. But it's the production database, it's just the scramble where it passes HIPAA. And you know, they branch their code off, they bring that down, they get completely working in their local desktop environment before they ever take the code back and check it in, and then it's pulled out and reviewed, things like that. But when they're working on, you know, they could be sitting in a tunnel, stopped on a train, and continue to develop because everything they're using is actually on their laptop.
Yeah. So I think maybe, I don't know if it's in the resources or if it's something that could be possible, but probably setting up an environment like this to have them just, you know, connect through AWS or whatever it is and kind of spin up that environment so they can start coding in it.
And are there resources that you'd recommend that are baby steps to get to that for somebody who's a new programmer? Anything that you've seen that people have used that can bootstrap you into that environment?
Do you do anything with continuous integration?
No.
No. See, again, if you're targeting enterprise, you're going to need to start looking at continuous integration. And that would fit into it. The reason I asked that question was that the answer to that would fit into a continuous integration piece, something around continuous integration.
So one thing I know Eric Eric does currently that he recommended me to do prior to me being kind of exposed to it was to do your development on virtual machines. You know, things that don't affect your actual environment. This is sort of what containerization is, right? Really, it isolates you from your space, right? I don't think there is any type of baby step to take for them to kind of learn it. I think it's something that they could pick up on right away, considering it's just something that they spin up and start working on right away. How to set it up.
If you go to Docker Hub, you can pull down pre-built images for almost anything.
Okay, so
you have the same access with AWS. They have a lot of tutorial classes that you can run through. That'll teach you how to set up a container, how to set up your environment, your databases to connect to it, and all that good stuff.
But they're not going to be setting that stuff up. I mean, if anything, it'll be someone here at EdgeTech setting it up for the students. Students are just going to pick it up, right? Usually you would have a team that would set up something like this.
No, not at all. A lot of developers are starting to do that
themselves
on their own. Okay. A lot of organizations are mandating or asking for their developers coming in to have exposure to AWS and understanding how that works. It's not just understanding what AWS is, but how to set it up and how to connect to it, how to set up the security, the tunneling that needs to happen between the organization and AWS itself, that kind of stuff, the basic information. There's been a big push for AWS developers, or at least .NET developers with AWS exposure.
And is AWS assumed compared to Azure?
We use
Those are two big dogs.
Google Cloud is coming there too, right?
It's starting to show up.
The statistics I've seen show that those two are eating into AWS's market share. I'd like to kind of ask a leading question about what we're talking about now. To what you said, certainly if I was a hiring manager, my expectation would be that anything except for junior level developer would know about virtual machines and know how to spin something up like that. I'm not sure to what level, but I think that's reasonable. So kind of let me explain how I do it, and then maybe you guys can fill in where you think the direction needs to be. So when we're in the project phase, kind of what I've done is I look at what they're doing and how many people are working on it. A lot of times you get guys that are by themselves working on something by themselves. I actually had a group of 3 of them working together. So what I kind of done is I've kind of tailored the pseudo software development lifecycle to fit what size it is and what they're working on. So if it's web development, okay, well, let's focus on Agile. Whereas if it's a group, hey, let's actually build up a real portal site. Let's do real requirements. Let's do real documentation. Let's split up the work and understand what everybody's doing. Let's coordinate, what we're working on, that kind of stuff. But clearly, I mean, I know there was a push for a long time towards Agile and that type of thing. But my impression was always, it really depends on what industry you're in, and it depends on what you're working on. It's not one size fits all. And so, but if Agile is really what most industries are pushing towards, and it's certainly something to teach. I mean, I certainly think that we want to tailor things or steer things towards what's going to be most beneficial. So that's kind of the question. It's a little bit leading, but I think it's.
So if you're an IT software development company itself, you're looking to push gamers in. They're looking for agile. That's a big must. If you're looking at the financial sector, they are more of a combination, a hybrid between waterfall and agile. You release it out in iterations, sprints, or whatever, and just
Mini
control
waterfall.
it that way. Not true Scrum, because I can tell you that.
Agile light is what I always.
Yeah. I hate that other word that we used to use, white water.
Oh, gosh.
I hate that word.
Sorry,
passion.
hold on, you just give me flashback.
Sorry. Yeah. Try to keep away from the project management side out of it because it's confusing enough. No company that I've ever been to does agile the way agile is supposed to be
not
done.
at all. Yeah.
Yeah, everybody's version is different.
Yeah,
Everybody's
everyone has their own.
Big tweak.
whatever
development
works
life
for them.
cycle is different.
Tandy's the closest that I saw here local.
Which one?
Tandy, over forward.
I may have to apply there.
I think they stopped doing it when they changed CIS.
Oh, damn. Because it irritates me. Anyway, if you're looking for, if it's going to be a company that does a lot of tech and they're working towards just application releases and so on, that's going to be more agile. If you're looking for financial district, if you're looking for hospitality, or if you're looking at medical, software development, but for those sectors, they are going to be waterfall. They're not going to be agile as much.
But let's take a step back. So these companies, financial, hospital, medical, whatever you name it, even if they're waterfall, they're still going on mini waterfall-like sessions, right?
Not necessarily.
So they just code and
It
test.
depends
and
on
release
the
at some point.
regulations that are applied to the projects and stuff coming in. What has to be collected, how. Agile is about streamlined development, push, have a peer with you, check off what you're looking at, get it moved on, check it in. If you're looking at those other sectors, they're about following the rules because they have a lot of data they have to collect along the way.
Let me reel in a little bit to make sure the scope stays for the kind of students that we've got here. You guys will get into religious conversation here, and I'll never end. What does a entry-level student need to know about waterfall and agile? What degree of exposure should they have?
Well, let me extend that just a little bit. Once again, with kind of a leading question. My impression has always been that just about all types of web development are going to be agile in nature.
I guess it's define agile. I guess before we keep going on, right?
Generic.
Generic,
I'm saying agile in a generic
Right.
way. I'm not talking about any kind of
which at that
specific
point I
implementation,
agree with.
just kind of the ideas.
So the idea for me is all students need to be exposed to, and you guys can give your 2 cents. But what I think is important is for them to work on a schedule, right? For them to work on, all right, this is week 1, you're gonna get this and this and this done. If it doesn't work out, then at that point we can, start extending this day for this reason. And of course, project management, they'll take this stuff into account in general, right? But I think that's the only type of exposure they truly need, is to work in a team with a set schedule with their tasks. Whether you issue track with Jira or some other type of, GitHub or any other type of
I
issue
wonder if
track.
we could rework the lesson plans around that agile kind of methodology. Could you start off each day with a 15-minute stand-up meeting? Did you work on this last
Yeah.
night? Or what are you stuck on now?
I would
Yeah.
definitely do that right
If statements
from the
are
project.
And the other thing to kind of build on what you just said about, being able to work on deadlines, make sure the students know how to estimate their work. Because that's one of the things that is huge right now is the industry has gotten tired of developers who are like, yeah, I can do that tomorrow. And then tomorrow is 3 weeks.
The Scotty effect.
And we've got one company that we're in the process of acquiring that I am fascinated by their methodology. They actually bid every one of the developers bids on functions. So if a function is being assigned, now the interesting thing is they're using all 1099 developers. And so if you turn it in way sooner, if it's ready to go way sooner than you bid, well, okay, but that's almost like a negative. If you hit it, that's great. You get a bonus. For every day it's late, they actually deduct down to a floor, and it's in the contract, so it's not a surprise. But if you are late on your turning in working code, you're going to make less money.
Wait,
It's
so they're
actually a penalty.
bidding with their hourly rate?
They're bidding on how many hours it's going to take. Great set. They're saying it's going to take me this many hours to
Do they
deliver.
bid against each other internally?
No, it's just right there. Yeah, they're saying, they can look at the projects and they say, okay, I think I can do that one in this long. And they've made an assignment, they'll take it back into account. But yeah, they're actually penalized if they turn in their work late. So it's knowing how to estimate the size and the scope of a project and what it's going to take is a valuable skill.
I have spent some time talking about estimation in the project phase. I've spent some of my career working for myself, so you have to learn how to do that. And we don't go in depth. I just told them that, like, when you're new, early on in your career, you have to do things like, estimate max and mins and then create averages. Over time, you start to build up experience, then you can start to base your estimates on experience and that kind of stuff. But we don't really go into any kind of detail.
I would at least have them sketch out what they think the major parts of their project are and how long it's going to take, and put that in the GitHub notes to where it's there, and it doesn't, that they can't change that. Now, benchmark yourself at the end against it. But,
That's what Dan's gonna do, Nancy.
yeah, you're going to get benchmarked on that.
What are the tasks gonna be required to get the job done, and then base it against that?
I feel like on the handful of entry-level developer jobs that I've worked, they want basic understanding of the different methodologies, but the only one where it was important that I kind of went over with the candidate what they were doing was paired programming. They wanted me to make sure that they were okay with doing that before they got into the job.
Because a lot of entry-level programmers, that's the situation they put them in paired programming.
Well, some people just don't want to program with somebody on their hip, and some people are open to it, but they just the client just wanted us to make sure that they understood that was what they were doing. I see more agile related things, positions than waterfall, but as far as it being a hard requirement for a developer, we have one company they want true Scrum. They have people that are comfortable in true Scrum environments, but most of them feel like the developers can adapt.
So if they have a good understanding of the vocabulary and about the nature of the meetings.
Yeah, for entry level especially.
For entry level,
Right,
yeah.
they'll need to understand
So
what
long
the
as they
response.
have recognized the terms.
Yeah.
All right, and we actually do have a vocabulary sheet for it.
Okay, now that we threw you completely off track.
No, we just jumped forward on some of the slides. We went through a bunch of this, and some of this that we talked about here is on this slide, and Ivan brought up. And I am, one concern I have is, we fly through in 5 weeks, and on each of the languages, and it is interesting to see how the second language they do a little better on. But I think it's worth giving some thought to see if there's a way that we could change, particularly the C# and the Java, so that they complement each other. So we spend more time on one part of C# and more time on the area.
The only other trend is to go back again with containerization thing. And again, it doesn't matter which container you're dealing with, Docker, VM, whatever, but they should probably understand the difference between bare metal versus instance versus container versus function as a service. Because that continuum is going to really, people are going to ask them in that interview, have you ever worked with containers? Have you ever worked with some really advanced places can ask them if they've ever worked as function as a service.
Or as generic as they like to put it, are you a cloud developer?
Yeah.
Because that's what the big push is, to get off premise.
Are one of these have a lower barrier to entry? Are one of these, the different environments for containerization, are some of them easier to learn? That would be something that would be better for our students.
I've dabbled both in AWS and I've dabbled in Docker. They're
Kubernetes.
basically the same premise. There is a emphasis on which ones are easier to do mass migrations.
Which one is the most used?
Well, that's difficult because you're actually talking about two layers of the stack.
Yeah.
Because Docker containers will run on AWS. You can
Right.
use Docker's or AWS's container service to run your containers. You can also use Azure's or Google's or anybody else.
My impression has been that Docker's the one that's really gaining steam right now.
Docker's gaining a lot of steam. I mean, I was a big Vagrant guy for a while, but I've kind of
A
moved
big
away.
what guy?
Vagrant.
Big?
I was a Vagrant. Yeah.
I'll see a lot of people wanting like Docker or Kubernetes,
Mhm.
and they're basically
Kubernetes
Adidas
is a
personal
control
keys
structure on
something.
top of Docker.
Kubernetes?
Kubernetes is.
I've never heard it pronounced, so.
Well, you and I pronounce it the same way, so we'll say that
Good.
that's the we'll
I've
say that's
probably
the
heard
correct
someone
one.
else say it.
That's like Linux or Linux. You know, you have to go actually out of Wikipedia and listen to Linus Torvalds say it. And you know, I have the official pronunciation.
Gary, have you guys actually already covered this slide? Because I got a pertinent question.
Well,
Somewhat,
we
yeah, no,
we
it's
danced around this
yeah.
for a while. That's why I popped
Okay,
up.
so can I ask a question? This one's been kind of on my mind for a few months. It's the SQL versus no SQL thing, right? So you see all of this buzz about no SQL, right? But then I went and actually, what happened was we had a recruiter come in and I asked him, I said, hey, what's the balance here? And is no SQL, how much steam is it gaining and how much ground is it gaining on regular SQL, traditional SQL? And, so I went out and I looked at the adoption rates, and what I found was that Oracle SQL Server and MySQL is still the big three, right, by a long shot. Would you agree with that?
I would, and I think that that's because people like us, the architects, haven't gone far enough. You're still seeing a lot of stuff that would actually work better in NoSQL being done in SQL because you're dealing with an architect who hasn't taken the time to go out and understand what pluses and minuses of both platforms are.
I would agree.
So yes, I think that it's not necessarily because of any positives or negative merits of the platforms. It's because there's just not enough people with their heads wrapped around it.
So-
It's simpler than
So
that.
it should be covered in a class?
I think it should be covered. I like that you kind of use it in the Node.js arena
Yeah,
because
fits perfectly.
it fits well in there. But unfortunately, I think again, you're talking entry level programmers here.
Right.
You're not talking architects.
Is it lost? Are we spending time on something that would be better suited to go on another topic in more depth?
I think the massive footprint you got out there right now is like you said, Oracle and SQL. And he's correct. Architects haven't made the leap forward, but they're starting to. The problem is you have the legacy applications, you have the legacy hardware. It's either on-prem and they're pushing the cloud, so that's your biggest handicap.
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's almost like Agile, or these. Make sure they understand the glossary. Maybe they understand the concepts. I wouldn't spend a lot of time on teaching how to program against it. That's just my opinion.
I've got a database with 100,000 movies and 40,000 actors. That's Mongo. If you're telling me that.
No, I love it. I have been arguing for 6 months with our lead developer on one of our projects that I think he should convert his whole thing over to a NoSQL structure because it would be so easy to keep the history, which they're struggling with in the SQL world.
But maybe it
Because
should
they've
be
got to
more
keep
of
a chain. They've got to keep a delta change of every single record. There's so many tables that they're having to go out and try to watch for changes.
So does it
dump it all in one
Is it
document.
something we should expose them to, but maybe not make it incorporated into a sidebar kind of a topic rather than mainstream?
During the interview, you're gonna get away with the fact that you can say you know SQL or Oracle or whatever, but you have the tidbits of learning NoSQL. You can still get in the door. Because what you can, as a developer, any good developer can pick up a syntax or a language or whatever and learn.
Yeah, and we teach JSON, we teach John notation, those types of things that are conducive to learning something like Mongo. What about, well, let me ask another question while we're on the subject, because I'm curious, but what about Hadoop? I read something recently that said 80% of the Fortune 500 companies are using it in some capacity. I was shocked by that. That's
big-
way
big
more
right now.
adoption, a higher adoption rate than I thought it would be.
But the thing is, it's most often used by data scientists as opposed to
But
entry level line of business applications folks.
you are correct, and that's the biggest push, is the intelligence part.
Right, but that's starting to gain applicability like all over the place, right?
Yes, it is now. So you're seeing a big emphasis for big data and data scientists coming into organizations. But your entry-level developer will probably rarely touch on that. I mean, you're talking about data scientists who are looking to build up huge and bring in all this massive amount of information. Hadoop is big and it's being used everywhere. It's being used heavily in conjunction with SAP right now. So any organization you run into that has SAP, they're going to have a big emphasis for the intelligence side with Hadoop.
You've got such a limited time.
That's
You know,
yeah.
I'm looking at going, is that worth the cycles? What would you steal it from? What would you minimize within your current loops? And I'm just not sure. I think it's definitely something to keep watching, but
The Hadoop issue is very much like NoSQL versus SQL question. Good to have the exposure and understanding, and a lot of it is something you're going to learn as you go in. As an entry-level person, I doubt you're even going to touch it.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm going to see if I can summarize a few things. Some of the major things that I've heard. You guys beat on authentication last time, or the last couple of times that we've had this conversation. So to hear that drum again. Containerization, another big one. The new topic that I've heard, and I think deserves a lot of attention we need to look at, is the complementary nature of Java and C#. Maybe we could do something where we could get more mileage by doing,
Content for C#.
well, spend a lot of time. We got syntax.
don't
that's so
reteach the
simple.
basics.
So spend more time on the language on one, spend more time on the platform / framework on the other.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah.
That's right.
Give them exposure to one, and then they'll tell you which one they're really more comfortable with.
And
That
then,
might be the option too. You could give them the premise of the initial piece, and then let them decide which direction they want to go with.
when they get to a project, they can do that, but
Yeah.
in the first
And
20
that's the
weeks,
problem.
we don't have that.
We don't know when they're going to start. Their first class might be C#. Somebody else's first class might be Java.
No, and I agree. That should be when you do the project, which direction you're gonna, but you're gonna find out who's more keen towards leaning towards C#.
Back to my summarization. And then there's notes, MongoDB, perhaps make that much more of a sidebar exposure. Here's what it looks like, spend a day or two on that, but then dwell a lot more on that.
Can I add something to that?
No, I was summarizing.
Go ahead.
No, if there's other things that need to
I
be,
think
because
this
those are
is
some
quite
of the
important.
major topics I've heard. Now,
Yeah.
if there are some that I missed.
I think it's something that's quite important, and I believe we missed it. How much time are we spending on SQL, on just stored procedures, on views or indexing, and all the different
I agree with what you're
SQL
saying.
security is something that's very important. Now, from the security aspect, maybe not for entry level. It's probably really important, but probably not things that are going to be asked to an entry level. Although they do ask sometimes what SQL injection, I believe. But one of the very important things is you go into an interview and they're going to ask you easily over 5 questions of SQL. whether it's what is an index, whether it's what's the difference between a stored procedure and a view, whether it's, write me a join between two different tables or something.
Database connectivity too.
I feel like we didn't do enough of that. When I taught a SQL class, how many hours versus how many hours? It's 80% HTML and 20%,
80/20.
20% SQL. And I don't
Are you
think,
covering ORMs? Are you writing bare
no,
SQL?
we're covering ORMs in C# and in,
Touch on C#, yeah.
yeah, but I think it's pure
They
SQL.
don't know that.
Pure
that's
SQL,
what
but
it is so much.
it's not enough. It's never going to be enough. We have, where we work, we have a dedicated team of purely database developers. So we have a good, maybe easily 15 database developers, and all of them are old timers, you can say, right? So they're all older people. There's no young person that's a database developer, which I believe is going to be a problem in the future. So we need young people, I think, to start picking that stuff up.
All right, I'm gonna shift gears here a little bit. We're actually quite a bit. We'll get Ben involved. We have had in the neighborhood of 24 or 30 students come through our program. And where we have found them have, lately, we're seeing more come to us through Facebook. We've had people just walk in the door and talk to us, which has been very exciting because they've tripped over us. We go out to job fairs, and we've had a number of people who are looking for work, and we're there, and they go, I thought about that. And we get a nice, respectable group there. And then our Google AdWords will bring us up if somebody's looking for particular phrases to, we show up, and we've had a number of students come in just because of that. So what phrase, without Ben biasing us on what we're currently out there triggering on, what words, what would be something that you think about somebody who's not a programmer? What are they looking for on the internet if they think, I might want to do something with computers, I want to do whatever, fill in the blank. That's what. Am I wording that like you think would be appropriate, Ben?
So you're asking for the keywords.
Yeah, like the Google AdWords and all that. So that we pop up, Edge Tech Academy comes up as the second item on the list.
I'm assuming you've already got Make Money Fast.
Retire at 40.
So you're targeting younger people.
We're targeting people who can be successful as programmers. Yeah, no, it's not.
I like where the design, and again, Ben's already biased us, so.
I'm trying to stay quiet.
No, but, I brought you into the conversation earlier, and I really like your design tilt picture that you mentioned earlier. Design.
That's one of the segments.
Yeah.
I think your target's pretty important. Who you're aiming for have different interests, right?
Yeah, there could be different pools of people out there. There's the high school graduates.
There's a military coming back.
And a year from now in September, we can take benefits, but we can't now. We have a lot of bids come through,
That'd be a
and it
big
just
one
makes
for
us sad.
GI Bill. They can't use the GI Bill here yet. until then.
You got to be in business 2 years. So next September, I'm looking forward to that.
People, if you look at the profile of really good programmers, it's people who like to solve problems, puzzles, like to make things work.
These are people who will flourish
Right.
in it, who will be successful.
So, you might target things like puzzles and games. You might target things like people who like to be on the cutting edge of new technology. People who like to, especially with the languages you're focusing on, teaching COBOL. So
Those guys are dying.
yeah, I'm not saying there's not a market for COBOL, but you're not teaching COBOL, so you're not trying to attack people who want to stare at a green screen all day. I don't think that programming
Those were easier days.
Yeah, those were worth it.
I can still remember how to do it.
Do you guys do you offer like pieces of the program? Like if you were talking about entrepreneurs before, like if there's an entrepreneur who wants to save money by building their own website or doing it on their own, can they jump in and do like just a web focused course instead of full stack, or is it's not all a carte?
Right today, we're a 30-week program. So Coding Dojo and DevMount probably a better suited for those people with entrepreneurial bent.
I see Facebook job fairs and Google Ads. You're not touching on LinkedIn.
We haven't done much on LinkedIn now.
But think about who's on LinkedIn.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of the newbies are starting to understand that they have to set up a file.
In high school, it's hard to tell on this. Do they? Well, maybe I'm
A
not.
lot
That's
of-
starting up.
A lot of recruiters are out there that want to do a career change, and they might see an ad to get into edge tech and
There
go,
you go,
oh, I'm
right.
jumping out of recruiting and going into web
development.
development or software.
I know. I should just shut up and let you guys talk.
Being in a scenario, and obviously I'm not a new person to this, but anything that has to do with career changes, LinkedIn is heavy.
Yep.
And that's what we're seeing from our job fairs.
If that's people you're getting, you got to put this company out there.
And at the job fairs, though, some of those people might not have the money to, like, they need a job, But if you see somebody who is working that might want to come to the night courses, well, they're still keeping their job so that they can work and do school. That might
So you're saying like a continuing education type.
Yeah, isn't that what the 6 o'clock to 11 o'clock program is?
Almost exclusively, they have jobs.
Yeah.
So we've had, and this is from my personal experience, we've had students who were interested in either building games or, they had a very creative reason to come here, right? They want to create something, they want to build something, but they don't know that programming is all about problem solving and puzzles, right? They might not be good in any way with mathematics or something like that, understand certain concepts and so on. I don't know if that's still the case, Eric. I don't know if you're seeing students struggle because of that. But when I was here, that was definitely something that was a little bit of a pain point, right? So do we still want to say that, creativity, create something new is still the target that you want to reach versus puzzles, solve, I don't know, something.
Creativity in building versus analytical and problem solving.
Yeah. I don't know if that's something, if
Those are
you
great
want to market.
concepts. I'm not sure what words somebody would use with those, but yeah, I think
If you want to market it, you'll get both ways, right? But you're going to get people who will thrive and you're going to get people who will fail, right?
Well, let me ask you a question, because, some of us went to school, there really weren't computers in the schools.
Yeah.
So, I mean, for example, we had one computer in my elementary school, right? So I think the exposure level to certain types of, like, let me give you another example, right? You guys walk around, your necks are cricked because you're dusted like this, right? I mean, the world around has changed. The term app developer 20 years ago is completely different from what it means now. It means almost exclusively developing for a cell phone, right? So,
I mean, how people are
if
taking
someone
it. No,
goes,
how people are
no,
taking
if
it.
someone searches app development, most of them in their minds thinking
I think you're
cell
right.
phone,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
Not those in the profession, because we've got tons of different types of apps. stores.
Just-
Zoom,
Just
but
generally a person who
generally,
looks up,
yeah, you're
who looks up
right.
app development is
So
thinking.
what I'm
yeah,
asking is, what I'm saying is I don't know that I have a good representation of the market we're looking for. And, you know, there's been a discussion in, you know, IT for years about, you know, what makes the right developer? Is it aptitude or is it an attitude or, you know, is it exposure? What is it? Or is it just a craft you get better with time? But I mean, certainly I would say you're probably more in tune with the mindset of certainly the people we're looking at to go to that are going to take the morning classes, right? The guys coming out of high school or whatever.
So what they're looking for.
Yeah, right. I mean,
Look, I know a lot of people.
I can't relate to guys like you,
Yeah.
man. You young guys.
I think what a lot of people are looking for, just seeing a lot of the younger people here come in and ask me questions from my game development background was, oh, you build games or you created games. Wow, that's really cool. I want to do the same thing. It's, yeah, you might play games, but
Yeah, it's a different.
creating games is completely different, right?
Yeah.
It's not the same. Of course, this is cool. You guys are getting a lot of students or a lot of people who would be interested. Oh, you want to create a game? Sure, you're going to learn how to create a game here. But you probably want these people to succeed and not drop, right? Because we've had that.
Not be frustrated.
We've had frustrated students who just dropped, right? I don't know if it's the younger people or if it's just the older crowd who just feel like they're you know, it's a bit of a challenge for them.
Every student here comes to the classroom, right? It's not, you don't have any fully online students,
No.
right?
Nope.
So do you guys do primarily marketing through the internet career fairs, or do you like go to the high schools and kind of tell them about yourselves and like, get the kids that are in the
When we
computer
get to high
science?
schools, that's certainly something. that
Yeah,
we're
'cause it-
researching.
We
If
have
you
gone
went to,
to a
like,
few
the-
high schools.
Is it tough to get in there? Because I mean, I feel like if a student that was interested in computers but maybe couldn't go to like wasn't able to go to college, but was here pretty close. I mean, and they knew that this was available and that it would train them up to do something that is very
Yeah, many times when
marketable.
Brendan brings in people to talk to us, potential students, there's oftentimes, especially when you're younger, there's oftentimes a conversation about, prove to me why this is better than going to college. That is
Shorter.
a very common topic.
You don't have to take English. You don't have to take history or government.
Yeah, but you're
Yeah.
you're gonna weigh against industries that are looking for people that have a degree in this or a degree in that.
What are the, I mean, what is, I guess, the percentage of how many want degrees and how many don't care for degrees and just
In
want,
the last 5 or 6 companies that I've worked in, they're looking for degrees.
they're all.
We actually just dropped our degree requirement
Yeah, but I think,
for entry-level developers. I mean, we've got it on our entry-level developer standardized kind of job description. No longer has, we're looking for more skills than a piece of paper.
right, that's the trend. I've
Yeah, I don't know
trending
if that's
away.
good. Yeah, I don't know how
Yeah,
that's
I
really
mean,
well.
but if you look at today's,
Yeah, are we getting a
Economic.
little bit of a feel from the original question was where do we look? How do we get their attention?
well,
High schools just.
it depends. If you're gonna hit high schools, then their attention span is gonna be purely on gaming. That's just the way it is.
A lot of the people, yeah, a lot of the crowd is. Yeah.
Right, no,
Yeah.
well, it's because that's what they're used to doing.
Right.
My 2-year-old knew how to shut down my computer
Yeah,
perfectly. Never crashed it.
yeah, people are not caring, I find, as much for development, web development.
No,
could be
but,
probably wrong,
but
but-
let's talk about what you just said. So there's a commercial that's running right now that talks about the same thing. It says, you know, back in our day, apps meant working on an application for a game or mobile iOS. They steered it off to IoT instead, Internet of Things, thermostats, you know, anything that's connected. It's no longer about just a computer. And I think that's what the push you're going to have to make if you're wanting to get them to look at it in the aspect of what's going to make me or generate me more money.
I think creation in general. I know Jose was always he always wanted to build. He came here to build an app, right? Or his goal is to build a a mobile application. Not a game, but a mobile application. A lot of the students came here to build their own websites, right? Who have a project in mind, who have a financial project in mind, like Vern. You have students who work at a certain company and feel like, you know what, there's a web application that I can create that will make my process a lot easier, right? And they can be in different sectors in the company, right? Totally unrelated to the computer science field, but they know that they can optimize a certain process and then maybe eventually get an IT position based on that, right? I think creation is probably what you're looking for, right? Creating something, building something, building a puzzle, building a website, building an application.
You want to connect people together. Look at Facebook, LinkedIn, WhatsApp, any of those. It's a way to connect people together.
Here's one idea, this popped in my head. The way they found the scientists for the Enigma project over in England was people the way they advertised is they had crossword puzzles in the newspaper. And they found those students, those people who could solve crossword puzzles. And that's how they broke the Enigma code. I don't know if we could put puzzles out there, and that goes along with the creativity and the problem solving, which would mean that you'd say, well, you guys got to give us some puzzles that we can put in there, but find those challenges that and give them some stickiness to look at for a couple of extra seconds.
Kind of reminds me of that book you gave me with all those teaser puzzles that show how do we get the 3 light bulbs turned on at the same time.
That's a great problem.
That's a
In
great
fact,
one.
I need to
love
give
that.
that to we have interview questions about weekly with the students. By the way, we've been going here.
We do an elevator test in our program interviews.
You mean which elevator picks you up?
No, we have our senior developer will generally draw an elevator shaft and then control panel and say, pseudocode out the logic to make an elevator work.
Okay.
That's the word.
That's the main
That's the
question we
hardest.
throw people on.
Let me.
I was thinking of paragraphs about
Kind of
this.
what everybody's talking about here.
I've got it.
Just to make sure they get the right idea. Some people see a problem as a challenge and something worth their time and actually even maybe entertaining. Not everybody's like that, but people that tend to look at things like that as being something they want to endeavor against tend to be people who want to do this kind of.
Right.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, if their focus is purely gaming, unless they're gonna go to an all-out gaming strength course, they're gonna get here and not get out of the program what they're expecting. Because you're teaching them how to code, and a lot of that is, by
It's a
our
little
terms,
different.
boring at times. But unless you're a logical thinker, willing to solve a problem, that's a whole different animal. You gotta, as you bring the people in, they need to have the expectation up front. Because this isn't about, creating the next Doom. This is about learning how to get from point A to point B, how to connect everything and everyone.
We've been going for an hour and a half now. So I do want to be respectful of your time. You're welcome to stay here as long as you like, but we've been here an hour and a half. Are there any final topics that we really ought to give some attention to and have some other discussion?
I actually was going to go back and you had it on the agenda here, so I got it. You mentioned the program outcomes piece and the benchmarks up there by the various agencies. Where are y'all against those benchmarks? Oh,
We've had 4 graduating classes of 12 students. Our first group graduated June, and they started back in November. So we have 5 who are currently hired as programmers, people who started from scratch. One of our best programmers, absolutely no experience with programming. We've had one company come back and say, he was a great guy, made us look really good, so they hired a second person from our program. So we've got 5 who are hired, 1 was hired, another one was hired, but then the position was reduced. You guys can read English, right?
Yeah.
So
How does that track against your requirements?
we are a little bit low. Now, actually we're fine according to what I showed here, because it says 60%.
Mhm.
And I think we're okay at 60%, but I think our real number is 70%. So we've got a couple of 3 students we need to. And what we do post graduation is we keep working with them if they'll return our phone calls. And so we don't, we certainly can't dust our hands, because if they look bad, we look bad. And so it's a win-win. We keep trying to work with them to help them find something, come in and keep moving.
So I saw on your site where you said you go through with them doing their Facebook pages and updating that. Do you have a professional resume company working with you?
Well,
We've got that website that they can go through and build it. We've got new curriculum that goes through it's actually pretty good. With it comes a service where they go and sign up, and it walks them through the resume creation process. And I thought it was pretty well done.
okay. We've also had recruiters offer to look at their resumes to make sure they look.
We help build up LinkedIn.
You're gonna find quite a bit of that. If it's not in a specific structure and it's not using the right fonts, then the system goes wacko. It doesn't ingest into the receiving system and populate the right things in the right places, which is why I'm asking that. Because I ran into several times where people have tried to do that with us when I was working at, let's say, Colonial or wherever, not Colonial, or Signet. They use a Workday engine behind theirs where it'll bring in the data and populate it. So if the resume is not structured correctly, it kind of screws things up.
Yeah, like if you have an image, like if your resume is actually just an image and it's not a searchable thing, if it goes into their system, their applicant tracking system, it won't pick up anything. It'll just be a
Right,
blank
you're not
piece of
putting
paper.
everything back in manually yourself. That will
Okay.
be an issue for some of the new guys going out there trying to get the stuff out to the system.
I haven't taught that course, but we did. It's really nice, professional. The previous book we had no comment at all about electronic presence, but this one is.
Right now, if you put everything, so every now and then I'll just hit download to PDF on a resume if I've been talking to somebody on LinkedIn, or not on a resume, but on their LinkedIn page. And if you download their LinkedIn page to a PDF, it looks like a professional resume now. It's gotten to the point where, I mean, it looks really good. So if they are entering everything into LinkedIn with bullet points and then they download it to PDF, it looks nice and it's searchable. So it worked in our
Okay.
ATS at least.
Good to know.
And a lot of companies are using ZipRecruiter. Right now it's fairly heavy. And theirs allows you to put your resume out there, very simple stuff, but it lets all the recruiters see you as well. And they'll pick and choose. And
Yeah, when I came and talked, I think one of my things was you put your resume on a job board and update it weekly so that it doesn't look like it's been there forever. So that it looks like it's always fresh. So a recruiter like myself will say, "Oh man, he's just got on there," when really put it up there for the first time 2 months ago. And I'll be like, "I'm the first recruiter to get him." Yeah.
And one thing I need to remember when we talk to the recruiters, and I think it was you were here, it was just 3-4 weeks ago. You posted on LinkedIn and included us.
Yeah.
And we need to get more recruiters to say, "Hey, I dropped in at Edge Tech," and get us visible there. Okay. All right, if you would, I need to grab some pens, I bet. I need, if you would be kind enough to go to the back there. Who else needs a pen? Looks like everybody's got one. And you guys really are invaluable to us. We appreciate it. But yeah, and I think we've got some good ideas for that. I'm very excited. Rewrite our entire curriculum. Sorry. No, I think I struggle with the Java classes. I can't get in as deep as I want. I can't go too much because these guys are rad. But I think we can do a yin and yang where we do more here in this class. And more
Hard to, no, my business, yeah.
I think I got the same.
What, who's the direct competition for like full stack development, like with C# and Java? I know that there's like some boot camps and stuff that maybe like the front end stuff, but like their full stack JavaScript development. But other than like bachelor degree programs, computer science. who else is
All right,
there?
looks like my
I think that's the bigger.
meeting
But they don't
has
have-
expired here.
I will.
Oh, no, that's just my battery. Okay.
Boot camps in general, I think, are one of the bigger competitors.
I know
There are other schools that are exactly